We also are looking to do some social media networking to help promote or make people more aware of BCM. And this will be mainly aimed at Mongolians through LinkedIn, Twitter, and eventually, or thirdly, Facebook. The update on membership. On October 31, it was 268. On November 1, it was 0. 1 week later, or 10 days later, November 11, we're at 158 members. So, to conclude on membership, our goal is to get significantly larger, significantly stronger in terms of size and strength, which means more lifeblood. As we said, we're going to focus on greatly increasing our medium-sized members in addition to our larger members, and we're going to continue to focus on more Mongolian entities. So those are my membership remarks. Our chairman is on the way, but on his behalf, we have some upcoming events. A number of you will be in Hong Kong with us next week. Some of you were with us in Perth 2 weeks ago. That was mining supply. As you know, Hong Kong, with the Beacon Events people running it, will be probably 4 times the size of the outing in Perth, and will not only include the mining, but it will include, from their big database, a lot of investment and fund participants, which we like to see. They're a source of new members. Trade fairs. Our Vice Director Sarat is heading tomorrow to London with a group of Mongolians. They're going to be meeting with, about 125 people. They're going to be hosted by a number of colleagues from here. One, Graham Hancock at Anglo-America, we'll have them in there. Secondly, PricewaterhouseCoopers will have the group at their offices, and possibly Rio Tinto will be also hosting our group. So that should be a good outing. And at the end of the month, there'll be a similar outing wrapped around the Tokyo Auto Show, which will lead to Tokyo.
Go for a trip and do our due diligence and see everything for ourselves. It was a tremendously odd experience as an American to travel through formerly Red China on the way to DPRK. I can tell you that my wife was none too happy when she heard about my plans to go. And so what I wanted to do was just give you a brief slideshow of our trip, just give you a sense of what the place looks like. And I think that the DPRK is something that, from an economic perspective, has a tremendous amount of potential. And pretty clearly, Mongolia is one of their closest, I guess you could call them allies. And I do not only see, but expect an increasing amount of economic activity to take place between the two countries. So our journey started actually in Yanji, which is 2 hours drive from the DPRK border. We were actually treated to North Korean girl band at the hotel we were at that evening. Interestingly enough, when you walk through and travel through Yanji, about half the storefronts there are Korean, and I think in that case it means North Korean. So there's already tremendous economic presence and call it cooperation between China and North Korea. No journey starts without or happens without some degree of problems, and we happen to get a flat tire on our way to the 2-hour drive to the North Korean border, and this is us waiting for our second bus, which fortunately showed up relatively quickly. This is actually a picture of the border crossing. So that bridge, across that bridge, is China, and where we're standing is at customs in DPRK. The travel and driving across that bridge was truly a surreal experience. Oddly enough, the Chinese were more restrictive with respect to taking pictures than the North Koreans were, hence we were able to get this picture. This is where we went through customs. They ask for 3 things when you're going through customs: your laptop, memory sticks, and if you have a Bible. Fortunately, I was traveling with nothing but heathens, so there was no Bibles among us. So we did surrender our laptops. Oddly enough, they never asked for the password. I think it was more procedural. We were able to keep our phones, and there was no problems with keeping cameras or anything else.
In many, many countries in which we operate. And over the last couple of years, we've been getting ready to do this survey in Mongolia. We did actually survey some CEOs last year in 2012. We didn't publish the results. We were hoping to use that for comparative information. So 2013 is, I think, the first year that we've actually published this. And so as you go through, just a couple of health warnings. Some of the questions don't have comparatives because those questions weren't asked last year. And for those of you who are auditors or financial people, I know there are a few of you out there, the percentages don't always add up to 100 because quite often in these questions you could pick more than one answer. I think our objective in this was not for PwC to particularly go into this with any, let's say, agenda or view. I think that points to the fact that the Mongolian economy is more linked with, let's say, the Chinese and to a lesser extent the Russian economy. So I think that if you were to look at the Chinese version of our CEO survey, that's much more in tune with what's going on elsewhere in, let's say, the Near region. So not as impacted by global trends as in many other places. In terms of the main opportunities to grow business, the shift that we've seen here is that the CEOs are looking much more towards organic growth in their existing markets than they were a year ago, and less towards new product development and introducing new products. That is a trend that you see throughout this survey, in fact, is that there is a shift away from, let's say, innovation in a product sense, and more of a shift to looking at the existing customer base. Something that's sort of buried down towards the bottom of this chart is, if you look at the third category from the bottom, you'll see that a year ago, 23% of Mongolian CEOs were concerned about shifting consumer spending and behaviours. That's actually taken quite a leap to 35%, and that is rapidly moving up the concerns of the CEOs. Now, if you think what we were saying about concerns around revenues and keeping the customer happy, that's actually not surprising. So there are worries about sort of shifts out there in the marketplace, which is creating quite a lot of uncertainty. Now, 2 questions in there that are linked, which I found maybe a little bit surprising. People are very concerned about the inadequacy of basic infrastructure. That's still around 55%. But for some reason, people are increasingly less concerned about energy costs and availability, which is down around 26%. Now, I don't quite know how CHP5 factors into this, but I'm actually surprised that energy availability is not further up the agenda. That may just be something in the way in which that question was understood, and maybe that's taken care of by the inadequacy of the basic infrastructure. Maybe that's where that one features. When we do this next year, let's see if we can up that number to increase the, let's say, the validity of what we're doing here. So that's it.
Any questions from that?
Well, previously we had 2 main laws related to FDI. The one is strategic investment law, people call it the civil. The other one is foreign investment law, which was adopted in 1993. New law replaces those two laws. So, in other words, those two laws have been terminated. Okay. The law includes some general provisions related to guarantees and protection of investors. But I would like to just highlight the red one, because law only will be amended or changed upper 2/3 of total parliament members, which is the second law under the, in this concept, which the law is the second law behind the constitution.
Good evening.
Kristen Bruin.
Chris Agreement from MAD Investment Solutions. I had two questions, that's all right. The first one is regarding the 100,000 investment by shareholder. It's a three-part question. Is it Mongolian to foreigners? Is the minimum amount of shareholding? And is it retractive? As in, do current 50 companies have to justify $100,000 per investor or not? The second question is regarding the VAT. You mentioned that the VAT will be part of the stabilization agreements. The VAT is a tax which businesses pass on to their customers and then give to the state. How is it fair to have companies which will have different VAT levels? Let's assume a restaurant has a stabilization certificate, will have different VAT, which is then passed on to the customer. The VAT is not a tax which is the business simply collecting it on behalf of the state.
Okay. Well, for the first question, the 100,000 threshold, previously, the 1993 law requires minimum 100,000 USD for one entity. Okay. Now it's changes slightly because new law requires each foreign investor should invest 100,000. So, in other words, increase threshold a little bit. If you are two members, it will be required to 200,000 USD. Okay. And for the second question,
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Does that mean that...
Not reactive. So if you have already established your company, the law won't require to add any amount of money. For the second one, when we discussed the law at the parliament, we were discussing that this topic was one of the hottest questions. But why we have chosen those for taxes? Because these four taxes compromises over 70% of total tax revenue, or budget revenue.
I just wanted to ask you about the second table, the second group of industries, the non-extractive industries. From your point of view, which sorts of industries do you imagine that will come forward for that?
Well, very general question. All sectors except the previous.
I appreciate that, but I wondered what was on your mind with this.
Sorry?
What was on the government's mind? You've been in the meetings, obviously. What sort of industries were suggested?
Well, it's my just personal view. Everyone says Mongolia has many resources and rich to be invested, to be developed. One of them is agriculture, husbandry. Even some people say that we should be an IT country, IT hub, Silicon Valley, like that. But in reality, in my view, we should focus on agriculture, where we have some advantages and resources.
Thank you very much.
Both in Mongolian and English. Thank you.
I'm going to try to give you a bit of happier news than the other two presentations we've seen. All right, so I'm just going to chat with you a bit about what the Transparency Agreement, or the TA, is, how we got here, and what we think it means. There is something that the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative has. It's called a Trade and Investment Framework Agreement, a TIFA. These are agreements we have them with several dozen countries. They are frameworks for strategic dialogues on trade and investment. Basically, we talk to other countries about how we can do more business with one another. We have a TIFA with Mongolia. It was actually signed in July 2004. This is not well known. The first meeting of the TIFA Council, and under these TIFAs, each side establishes a council of senior leaders to hold these at least annual meetings to talk about how we can improve and increase trade and investment between our two countries. One chapter, though, out of what would be a free trade agreement. So the U.S. has 20 free trade agreements with other countries. You know, the last one that was concluded was with Korea. And all of those have chapters on transparency. But our transparency agreement is the only standalone transparency agreement that the United States has with any other country. So what it is an agreement to enhance and improve transparency in matters affecting trade and investment between Mongolia and the United States. And why do we think that's a good thing? Well, because of what's in the agreement. So the question was, how do we make sure of the implementation? What sort of remedies are there to make sure that it's implemented? I should point out that it's not actually yet in force. The Mongolian parliament still has to ratify it. Then both sides have to exchange letters to say we've met the legal requirements on our side. Then it goes into force 60 days after that. In terms of the technical assistance, we're not waiting. We're going to get started with that right away. In fact, under the agreement, Mongolia actually has 5 years to comply. But as we pointed out to them, the sooner you do this, the sooner it will help your investment situation. So there's no reason to wait. It is an agreement. It doesn't have the force of an agreement between governments, so there is every expectation that the agreement will be honored. And we will be continuously monitoring this, and we don't want to oversell this. This is not going to be smooth sailing. There will be a lot of, frankly, I think, jerks and starts to it, and it will require, meeting with our counterparts and talking things out. That's how we do it. Any other questions? Everyone's hungry. All right, thank you. David, thank you.
За сайн байцгаана уу, намайг Бямс сайхан гэдэг. Би бол Mongolia Business Council-ийн тооцоо дараач байна. Everyone, my name is Bямс Сайхан. I'm the chairman of the Business Council of Mongolia.
And what would you say is the responsibility of the Business Council to the private sector and its members?
Business wants more business, and that's a single important motto that Business Council of Mongolia carries today. And we currently have 270 members who are actively engaged in various types of business operations in this country. And our aim is to increase that membership so that people, the businesses, can always exchange information amongst each other. And then at the end, I think everybody gets more business, meaning that bottom line is important for everyone. So I'm a member of the Business Council, and the Business Council helps me to meet new clients, to meet new partners in business, and that's what I strive in terms of promoting in the future as chairman of the council.
And what is some of the roles of the working groups with the BCM?
Information is key for business decision making, and the BCM offers its members with information on key strategic policy issues that the government is undertaking, and also on issues of improving the business climate. And we have a wonderful business working groups that tackle each issues. For example, the legislative working group has worked hard this year in terms of analyzing and giving its members information about the upcoming policies and also legislative changes, particularly on investment law. So I think this was very helpful for our members.
And why do you think the audiences grow every monthly meeting? What are some of the benefits? What are people telling you they enjoy about these monthly meetings?
Well, Business Council is about, again, providing its members with opportunities to increase their business, number one. Number two, it's a platform for people to come and exchange information. Right? So we try to make it also fun for people by having monthly meetings and also cocktails and also annual dinners that are all directed towards exchange of good information amongst businesses.
Thank you for your time. Thanks for that.
But we have a long way to go. We want to get bigger. We want to have more medium-sized companies as well as our big members. And we want more Mongolians. More than half our members now are Mongolian. But we want and are aiming to have more Mongolian members.
Okay. My second question is about foreign investment environment of Mongolia. The presentation said that new law introduced, and how about the investors' impression about this law?
Oh, well, this new law, as Javka from the Ministry of Economic Development said, is very liberal, and it is. But it will take a while for investors to learn about it. They have not been coming to Mongolia since the beginning of last year. So this will enable investors to come to Mongolia again. We though need some big transactions to help attract them. We would like to see OT and the government reach an agreement on phase 2. We have Tavlin Togoi, we have uranium, we have power plant number 5. We have a lot of potential transactions. If some of these start to get done, it will then help convince foreign investors that Mongolia is now open again for business.
BCM has very big contribution to introduce this law inside Mongolia through the embassies and many companies here. But how is your opinion about the government of Mongolia should do to introduce this law outside Mongolia? What is your opinion about this?
Well, the government is going to start a promotion campaign. They've hired somebody in Washington to help with foreign investors. We hear that Bloomberg is going to do a big piece on Mongolia, like Indonesia and Malaysia. So these are starts, but promotion will be needed, and it will be needed for an ongoing period of time, for a few years, because that really will then help bring people back. We need promotion to get out to the world that we are now open again for business. It's going to take a while, though. We're going to have to prove that we're open for business. So it might not be 2014, which really takes off. It will be better. It has to be better than this year, which was way down. So it'll start. But then we would hope in 2015, for example, that it goes much higher, and it will be gradual. And we've got to show them we're open for business, and they'll be back. They're out there.
Renewal dinner of Business Council of Mongolia, organized annually for the 6th time. I'm Bayarma, chair of the BCM Environmental Working Group, and I have the honor to facilitate this reception. It's our pleasure to welcome you all for this remarkable event to commemorate the BCM Award ceremony for the best 2 companies of the year and the best working group of the year. There will also be a speech by a distinguished author, Jack Weatherford, who have written 2 famous books about Mongolia, on Genghis Khan and Mongolian quiz. Last but not least, we will run a lottery and select the luckiest people of the year from the name cards you provided at the entrance. If you haven't included yours, please do so. Now, I would like to invite Chairman of Business Council of Mongolia, Mr. Mepsahim Bayanjargal, to open the reception.
Thank you again for spending your time this evening with us. BCM is almost 270 members strong, and we are here to celebrate that tonight. And recently, the board of the Business Council and the Executive Committee, we have been long talking about what would the next 5-6 years be for the Business Council of Mongolia. We have been very successful for over the last 6 years. I think Jim showed you a slide today which showed our progress in terms of memberships. We started at 35, you said? We started at 35, and that was 2007, correct? No. And now we're at 268. Last year we were at 250, so we've been able to increase our membership despite some of the interesting and challenging times, particularly in terms of business growth in this country. So as chair of the council, I was elected last year, and I try to spend as much time as possible in terms of promoting the Business Council, and also in cases representing some of the voices that we have amongst each other, particularly in terms of improving the investment climate in this country. So this year, as one can appreciate, we had an interesting year, and Jaffa had a good presentation, I think, about the new investment law, and I was just giving out an interview for the national broadcaster, and the reporter asked me, so what's the benefit and what's the value of this new legislation? And I said, it remains to be seen. And all the good things Jaffa has spoken about, and now we are actually looking at whether Invest Mongolia will function efficiently. And I think for businesses, efficiency and speed translate into money and revenues, so that's very important. And the other thing that BCM does well is exactly this, providing a platform for members to exchange information. And why is information important for business? We all know that. Without up-to-date information, it's very difficult to make a good decision, particularly in this very dynamic and growing environment. And business wants more business. And I think that's happening with it. Тэгээд болон хоорондоо мэдээлэл сайн солилцоод тэгээд бизнесийн зөвлөлийн дараагийн жилийн үйл ажиллагаанд бүтээгдэхүүн олцороо гэж хүсэж байна. За яг
I appreciate this opportunity to to meet with you and to talk with you, because as you just heard, of course, I write about history, but you are the people who make the history. That you are the people who are making the history for the next century, or for the next generations, and for the future. So there's nothing I can say about business. That's not my area. But what I would like to do is talk just a little bit tonight about the history of business in Mongolia. It sounds like, well, that wouldn't be a very long speech, because most people assume that business started very recently. And yet, as I look around this room tonight and I see people from so many different companies, from so many different countries, speaking so many different languages, and I think it was about like this 1,500 years ago. 1,500 years ago is when we have the first recorded inscription written in Mongolia. There was a stone that was engraved in Hakhankai and is now in the Techelik Museum. And it was a stone written in the Sogdian language, a language nobody speaks in the world today. Nobody's heard of this language. The Sogdian language, which was related to Persian. And on the other side, it was written in Sanskrit. And it was written for the Turkish Han of Mongolia at that time. And it had words in there from the Persian language, from Sanskrit, from the Greek language, from all these languages around. And I think 1,500 years ago, there were Sogdian international merchants here in Mongolia meeting together, and they were using the languages of Sanskrit, Persian, Sogdian, Greek, Mongolian, Chinese, and Turkish. All of this was going on then. But sometimes we tend to forget about the past. But this has been the crossroads of world civilization. This has been where civilization happened. This was not the end of the world. This is where the world met for thousands of years. That's what's so interesting to me, is to look back in the business history, because it was always business that was pushing forward the history. It's the conquest that is best known. It is Genghis Khan. It is the Mongolian soldiers that are best known. But behind that, there was always business in Mongolia. You can look back at some of the words, and in the very first stone, you have the word nome. Nome, from Greek. Today, every Mongolian knows the word for book, the word that forms the basis for library. Even the word nome sung is on that stone.
Have had a very active year by all 6 groups. Internally, we chose the environmental working group as our working group of the year. The chairman is behind me, dressed in red, Byerma from Newcom's Clean Energy. She's done a great job. She got Madame Oyun at one of our meetings, the city of Ulaanbaatar, talking about their plant program and all kinds of good stuff. So we make this award to the environmental working group. Maybe.
She's getting it.
I just want to add that Byerma and I went to the same school, and about 3 years back I met her actually at a New Year event, and then we've been closely working since then. But she's been wonderful and doing lots of good things, particularly with the Sakit Wind project, but also leading the BCM on the working group. So congratulations.
Our committee spent a lot of time focusing on the best companies in Mongolia for 2013. And we are proud to announce 2 winners, 2 best companies.
Yeah, so I'm having trouble reading it. Okay. The Business Council of Mongolia, Company of the Year, Trade and Development Bank is recognized as a Company of the Year in Mongolia in 2013. For its excellent business plan and success of Blue Red TV Mongolia, productive and successful cooperation for the government on Chinggis Khan issue. The Business Council of Mongolia proudly acknowledges Trade and Development Bank as Company of the Year. And no, Randolph didn't vote for himself, so that clears things up.
Company of the Year, Mongolian Star Melchers, MSM. It's recognized as the Company of the Year for its long 16-year term of excellent business success and sustainable business growth. David Reiner, CEO.
My name is David Reiner. I am the CEO of MSM. This plaque is from BCM. It's the Mongolian Company of the Year Award.
And how many years has MSM been a member of BCM?
Well, we've been a member of BCM for all 6 years. We've also been a member of every organization that preceded the BCM for the last 16 years, working up to the BCM.
And what are some of the benefits you've seen in attending the monthly meetings?
I think the monthly meetings help us to pool the business ideas from the local business community and help solve problems as the issues with the Mongolian government progress.
Company?
I'm Randolph Kappa, President of Trade and Development Bank of Mongolia.
And the award. And your award today was?
Well, TDB was awarded as one of the best companies in Mongolia for its efforts in establishing Bloomberg TV Mongolia and the work with the government on launching the Chinggis Khan. And it's 1,328 dedicated employees.
And how many years has Trade and Development Bank been a member?
Since the formation of the BCM from day one, 2007.
And what are some of the biggest differences in the organization you see now compared to then?
Of BCM?
Yes.
Well, some of the biggest changes is the diversification of membership from what was originally essentially just a Foreign Companies Association to expand to include major Mongolian companies, medium-sized companies, state-owned companies, as well as the foreign embassies and representatives of the community.
And why would you recommend to a new company entering the Mongolian market to join BCM as a member?
Because business is our first name and our first priority. It's to help our members expand their own businesses through providing networking to them, providing them information and data, and support in advocating their issues and concerns to the domestic and international authorities.
All right, thank you so much for your time.
My name is Kevin Zazinski. I'm the Vice President of International Relations, Marketing and Investment for Mongolian National University.
You're one of our newest members. Why did you decide to join the BCM?
Well, my previous job at Asia Pacific Investment Partners, the company really received a lot of benefits out of membership. Besides the networking events that happen every month, are a great source of information. As you're making decisions in a changing environment, those monthly meetings really come in handy to help make better decisions, to stay on top of things ahead of the ball. And so as I joined Mongolian National University, I really strongly encourage them to join as well. The business community obviously is a recipient and an ultimate employer of all of our students. So our membership in BCM is an outreach to all of the businesses where we want to develop curriculum, develop the students that ultimately will be most hireable. So that's why Mongolian National University is very, very supportive of BCM.
I'm Bayarma. I work at the Clean Energy of Yukon Group, in charge of environment and carbon finance. And I've been in the BCM working group since 2011. And it was really unexpected to receive an award for our working group. But I'm happy that Environment Working Group received as the best award of 2013 because BCM has been very good platform, like good opportunity for us to broaden our professional networking and also share information, and also this will help us to promote sustainable business practices among our members and also involve our members' companies into the broader activities at the BCM.
And what are the opportunities for the working groups out of BCM to help influence Mongolia and its business sector?
I think it's a very good opportunity because at the BCM we have around more than 200 members, and most of the international and national consulting companies, embassies or private sector, most of them join BCM. So this creates us opportunity to develop something that we can do alone. So for example, the legal working group, they've been so active commenting on different mining laws and proposing them to the government. So I think if all working groups can do something similar, then that could be a very good start to spread out the real corporate sector and private sector voices up to the government. Because the private sector and the members at the BCM are there are many professionals and experts, and it's a very good chance to use for legal works.
Great, thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you.